现实版的黄金大劫
A
啊！
real-life version of a gold heist has just happened recently, right in front of the famous China World Trade Center in Beijing, and the person who ran off with the money may very well be the owner of the gold shop. What exactly happened here? Over the past 2 years, the hottest business has been selling gold. Last year alone, a total of 1,090 tons of gold were sold, and gold shops have been making huge profits. Yet in such an extremely booming market, a certain gold shop located in the China World Trade Center suddenly closed its doors, the owner disappeared, and most importantly, customers' gold valued at 50 million yuan vanished as well. Everyone is guessing that the owner pulled off a gold heist by running away. Many people are confused. If the owner runs away, customers' gold shouldn't just disappear, right? It turns out that this gold shop offered a service called Worry-Free One-Year Renewal, where customers could leave their gold at the shop for safekeeping. For example, if you deposited 100 grams, after 1 year, you would receive an additional 2.5 grams of gold, similar to depositing money and earning 2.5% interest. In fact, this was essentially a form of gold custody service. Why did customers dare to leave their gold there? Because this shop had a very prestigious name, China Gold Beijing Concept Store. China Gold is a well-known publicly listed company in the gold and jewelry sector, ranking among the top 3 in the industry and a major state-owned enterprise. Many people chose this shop specifically because of the brand. However, this is exactly where the problem arose. Although the gold market is booming, competition is extremely fierce. Chow Tai Fook, Chow Sang Sung, Lao Mio, Lao Feng Sheng, all of these players are very strong. China Gold has a total of 3,642 stores, but only 105 of them are directly operated. The remaining 97% are franchise stores. The shop that got into trouble was a franchise. What's more, just a few days before the incident, its major shareholder, who held 70% of the shares, withdrew, and the registered capital was reduced from 10 million won to 3 million won, suggesting the company was facing serious problems. If this gold really ends up being taken away, China Gold will inevitably have to compensate the losses, which would be a huge burden. They were already under significant competitive pressure. The latest announcement shows that the unemployment rate among urban youth aged 16 to 24 who are not in school has reached 18.9%. This figure is by no means an isolated economic statistic. It is the visible tip of an iceberg rooted deeply in both the economy and society. What exactly does 18.9% represent, and why is it considered a dangerous signal? To truly understand the 18.9% youth unemployment rate, we must first separate it from the changes in statistical methodology. However, the real difficulties faced by young people in employment may be even more severe because statistical rules exclude many actual unemployed individuals. For example, those graduates who choose to prepare for postgraduate entrance exams or civil service exams are often not recorded as part of the labor force during their long periods of studying. Another example is the increasingly common phenomenon of full-time children, where many young people stay at home after graduation and rely on their parents. They are neither considered employed nor actively seeking work, and are categorized statistically as non-labor force. If we consider the approximately 16 million non-student young people who stay at home or depend on their parents as unemployed, and then add the maximum number of officially registered unemployed youth for that month, the figure approaches 50%, far exceeding the officially announced 19.7%. The saying, graduating equals becoming unemployed, is not an exaggeration.
与服务业之间来回切换的现象。
Against this backdrop, many factories in China's coastal regions are operating below capacity, and the demand for labor has sharply declined. This year, many migrant workers returned to their hometowns earlier than usual, or shifted to temporary jobs. Even more, due to the reduction in manufacturing positions, some young workers who had long been rooted in the world's factory were forced to seek new livelihoods. Some simply joined the ranks of the so-called migratory delivery riders, working in factories and rushing orders in the workshop during peak seasons, then delivering food during off-seasons. This phenomenon of switching back and forth between manufacturing and services highlights the weakened ability of the real economy to absorb young workers. Even more concerning is the trend of foreign capital withdrawal. In recent years, there have been frequent occurrences of rare net capital outflows, indicating that many foreign enterprises are scaling back their operations in China. If this trend continues, China will face further employment pressure from industrial hollowing out. Compared with the decline of traditional industries, the emerging industries heavily promoted by the authorities in recent years seem to offer new hope for youth employment, such as new energy electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and other sectors.
青年失业率这个惊悚的数字。
Many bachelor's degree and postgraduate graduates, in order to avoid being counted as unemployed, continue their studies or join the civil service exam preparation crowd. But this merely postpones the unemployment problem to a later time. Meanwhile, the population officially counted as employed also contains a significant amount of inflation. The statistical standard that classifies a person as employed if they work 1 hour per week means that many flexible workers are considered employed, yet the quality of their work is worrying. For example, in recent years, the large army of flexible workers, such as food delivery riders, ride-hailing drivers, and live stream hosts, has grown tremendously. According to data from the National Bureau of Statistics, China currently has approximately 200 million people who make a living in this way. Although riders and drivers have income, they lack labor protection, their earnings are unstable, and they fall into the gray zone behind the employment numbers. These individuals are not officially categorized as unemployed, but they actually reveal the structural problems of an economy struggling to absorb labor. Having a job does not equate to having a good job. It needs to be emphasized that. Before we dive into all of this, let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. Connecting with viewers across the world is a huge source of inspiration for us. The impact of the high youth unemployment rate on society may be more severe than in many other countries. On one hand, the Social Security system provides relatively weak coverage for unemployed young people. In developed Western countries, the youth unemployment rate in the Eurozone this year is around 14% to 15%, and in some Southern European countries, it has even exceeded 25% for long periods. However, thanks to relatively well-developed unemployment benefits and social welfare systems, society can still barely withstand the pressure. Looking at nearby Japan, the youth unemployment rate has remained around 5% for many years, while South Korea's is about 7% to 8%, both overall lower than China's. Furthermore, even when youth unemployment rises in Europe and the United States during certain periods, they still maintain channels for upward social mobility and employment flexibility. For example, young people can buffer the impact through part-time community programs. In China, however, youth unemployment often means losing one's source of support. Most graduates are not eligible to receive unemployment benefits and can only rely on financial assistance from their families. The cleaning jobs and training opportunities that society offers to young people are also limited. An even greater concern lies in class solidification. Compared with mature Western economies, China's social mobility has weakened in recent years, and it has become increasingly difficult for young people from poor backgrounds to change their destiny through education.
优在于阶层固化。
When unemployment is layered onto this reality, the resulting sense of frustration and dissatisfaction becomes even stronger. Some people may say that unemployment rates rise seasonally every graduation season and will naturally fall afterward. But the problem is that the peaks of youth unemployment in recent years have shown a trend of increasing year by year. In the past, a rate of 12% during graduation season might already be considered high, yet now, even after seasonal declines, the rate still hovers above 15%. For example, in the summer of 2022, the youth unemployment rate broke through 20% for the first time, and even after falling in the winter, it remained around 17%. In 2023, it even exceeded 21% at one point, although it later fell to around 15% due to adjustments in statistical methods. This summer, it climbed again to 18.9%. Behind short-term fluctuations lies a long-term structural deterioration. Seasonal factors cannot conceal the continual increase in the number of graduates and the insufficient capacity of the economy to absorb them into employment. It is foreseeable that if there is no fundamental change in economic structure and policy, unemployment may continue to linger at a high level this year and could even reach a new peak.
失业率的首要因素
The primary factor driving up the youth unemployment rate is the problem within the industrial structure of the macroeconomy. Over the past 20 years, the two major engines supporting employment in China, real estate and manufacturing, have now seen one stall and the other move abroad. First is the shock brought about by the bursting of the real estate bubble. The real estate sector and its upstream and downstream industries once contributed nearly 30% of the country's GDP and provided a vast number of jobs. Now, as development investment continues to decline and industries such as construction and housing sales undergo large-scale contraction, youth employment opportunities have directly decreased. Many graduates from science and engineering fields who previously could find jobs within the real estate chain now face an industry in decline and are forced to switch careers.
不少出口加工企业将产
The retreat of the real estate sector has spread like a row of dominoes. Along with it, the relocation of traditional manufacturing and the loss of orders are eroding the foundation of employment. As labor costs rise and the trade environment changes, many export processing enterprises have shifted their production capacity to places such as Vietnam and India. Weak external demand and declining export orders have become undeniable facts. Statistics show that in the year 2023, manufacturing orders from the United States for Chinese products plummeted by 40% year-on-year, and in the same year, Hong Kong's external exports recorded the largest decline in 70 years. In the year 2022, the company recorded 47 billion yuan in revenue, still much lower than Chow Tai Fook and Lao Fengsheng. Its net profit was 767 million yuan, 300 million yuan less than Chow Tai Seng, even though Chow Tai Seng's sales volume was only 1/4 of China Gold's. Originally, China Gold hoped to expand through franchising, but instead, such a major incident occurred. This should serve as a warning to everyone buying gold. There are countless scams hidden within gold custody services. Unless you have absolute confidence in the gold shop, it is best to take your gold home with you or store it in a bank's small safe deposit box. Now that the gold market is extremely hot, people with bad intentions are also increasing. The average gross profit margin for opening a gold shop is only 22%, not very high. But if someone were to run off with all the customers' gold, Wouldn't that instantly give them financial freedom? At such a time, never gamble on human nature.
自2018年起，
There are two statistical approaches used for publishing unemployment rates: the registered unemployment rate and the surveyed unemployment rate. For a long time, the authorities more often cited the urban registered unemployment rate, which hovered around 4 to 5%, but this was based on the number of people who registered with employment service agencies and therefore failed to fully reflect the real situation. In contrast, since 2018, the National Bureau of Statistics has begun regularly publishing the urban surveyed unemployment rate, which is closer to international standards and includes youth unemployment broken down by age. According to the definition of the International Labor Organization, the survey obtains data through sampling and classifies people as unemployed if they meet the conditions of having been without work for nearly 3 months, actively looking for a job, and being available to start work at any time. Therefore, students currently enrolled in school are generally not counted as part of the labor force and are certainly not counted as unemployed. It is worth noting that youth unemployment data once disappeared from public reports. At the July 2023 press conference, the spokesperson of the Bureau claimed that the overall employment situation for university graduates was stable, while abruptly announcing that starting in August, the publication of youth unemployment figures would be suspended. The reason given was that there were differing views on whether students should be included in labor force statistics, and that the definition of the youth age range required further study. However, this explanation was quickly questioned because the Bureau had previously made it clear that unemployment statistics were aligned with international standards, and the unemployment rate for those aged 16 to 24 already did not include students. In fact, in 2022, there were more than 96 million urban youth aged 16 to 24, of which about 65 million were students and about 31 million were not students. The 21.3% youth unemployment rate announced in June targeted precisely this one-third non-student group. The uglier the data looked, the more likely it was to be withheld. Afterwards, the beautified youth unemployment rate briefly declined, but eventually this huge gap could no longer be covered up, and thus the shocking figure of 18.9% youth unemployment appeared. The change in statistics is already quite astonishing.
对大批普通本科生而言，
Many of the talents trained efficiently today are not the types urgently needed by new energy industries or biopharmaceutical sectors. Instead, traditional majors are oversaturated. It can be said that during this transition period between old and new growth engines, an awkward situation has emerged in which some people have no work to do while some work has no suitable people to fill it. Emerging industries can hardly become the savior of youth employment. To further examine the difficulty of youth employment, one must mention the structural contradictions brought about by the expansion of higher education in recent years. Since 1999, Chinese universities have expanded dramatically, with the number of university graduates soaring from fewer than 1 million per year to 12,222,000 in the year 2025. Over the span of a little more than a decade, the gross enrollment rate of higher education rose from less than 15% to nearly 60%, marking a shift from an elite system to a mass system. The devaluation of academic degrees followed. When university diplomas are everywhere, jobs that previously required only high school level skills now demand a bachelor's degree or even a postgraduate degree. This inflation of academic credentials means that university students no longer possess an inherent advantage in the labor market. Instead, it has created even fiercer internal competition. It has long become commonplace to see dozens or even hundreds of highly educated applicants competing for the very same position. However, it is necessary to soberly recognize that the employment buffering capacity of emerging industries is extremely limited. Although these sectors indeed grow rapidly and have high technological content, they are often capital-intensive and technology-intensive rather than labor-intensive, making them incapable of absorbing large numbers of ordinary graduates. For example, although the electric vehicle and photovoltaic industries have expanded at a tremendous pace, the number of workers required on their highly automated production lines is far fewer than in traditional manufacturing. Artificial intelligence and big data companies require only a small number of top-tier programmers and algorithm engineers, leaving very few positions available for the many ordinary bachelor's degree holders. This means that a high level of education does not directly translate into employment opportunities, and the skills of a large number of graduates do not match the needs of these heavily promoted new industries. At present, there is a disconnect between the education system and industrial demand.
也不再拥有优势。
According to statistics, China has nearly 480,000 PhD holders and 3,850,000 master's students currently enrolled, an unprecedented number of highly educated individuals. But on the other hand, the demand for white-collar positions in the labor market has not increased proportionally, leading to an oversupply of highly educated young people. The rapid expansion of higher education has also brought about another phenomenon, the boom in postgraduate entrance exams and civil service exams, which has become a reservoir to ease employment pressure. Many graduates, in order to avoid the situation of graduating equals unemployment, choose to pursue postgraduate studies and postpone entering the workforce for a few more years. According to official data, in the year 2025, the number of applicants for the National Postgraduate Entrance Examination reached 3,880,000. Although this shows a slight decline compared with the number of applicants in 2024, it still remains at a historic high, far exceeding the level of 10 years ago. Similarly, the civil service examination has become an outlet for millions of young people chasing their dreams. The number of applicants for the 2025 National Civil Service Exam reached 2,580,000, while the number of available positions was only 39,700. For highly popular positions, even several thousand candidates compete for a single spot. This phenomenon fundamentally reflects young people's desire for the stability of positions within the state system, the so-called iron rice bowl. Because these exam candidates are not counted as unemployed, the wave of postgraduate and civil service exam taking somewhat eases short-term unemployment statistics. But from a macro perspective, it represents an avoidance and postponement of the reality of the job market. A few years later, the majority of them will still have to return to the labor force. By then, they will be older, with lower starting salaries, and may fall into an even more embarrassing situation.
近年来，
In the past few years, some industries have experienced sudden policy crackdowns and regulatory storms. For example, the private tutoring industry collapsed overnight under the double reduction policy. The internet technology giants, under anti-monopoly measures and data regulation pressure, carried out layoffs and contraction. Recently, the wave of layoffs has even spread to state-owned enterprises, which were traditionally viewed as stable providers of employment.
近来才
In the year 2022, staffing quotas were cut by 5%, with Henan province reducing 5,600 civil service positions. Since 2022, Shandong has further eliminated nearly 10,000 public institution posts. Even the so-called iron rice bowl is shrinking, which shows the degree to which the entire economy's demand for labor has contracted. The private sector, which provides 80% of urban employment, has seen its weakness become especially devastating for youth employment. Over the past 2 years, many major internet companies have reportedly frozen recruitment or rescinded job offers for new graduates. The financial sector has also been tightening its workforce. Private enterprise owners widely report that they do not dare to invest and do not want to expand. And when it comes to hiring, they save wherever possible. As profitability declines for private firms, they naturally lose motivation to actively hire newcomers. This is especially true for small and micro enterprises in the service sector, which were severely damaged by 3 years of pandemic controls and have yet to recover. The number of job openings has dropped significantly. Many young people graduating today discover that the streets once covered with job postings at this time of year now show very few signs of recruitment. Even when positions are available, the salaries and benefits are often worse than what seniors received when they entered the industry a few years ago. As a result, youth employment is suffering a further blow, making a difficult situation even more dire. Under the wave of the Fourth Industrial Revolution,
年前水平。类似的，
even more serious is that aside from problems on the labor supply side, the reduction in recruitment on the demand side by enterprises is also an important reason why youth employment has become so difficult. In recent years, the business confidence and hiring willingness of China's private enterprises have clearly weakened. A series of factors has made entrepreneurs increasingly cautious. The slowdown in economic growth and weak consumer spending have left many small and medium-sized enterprises with insufficient orders, making them afraid to hire new workers or expand production. The tightening of the financing environment and rising interest rates have strained corporate cash flow, further suppressing investment in human resources. Even more important is the change in the policy environment.
招聘岗位较疫前减少。
Automation and artificial intelligence replacing low-skilled jobs is also a factor that cannot be ignored. Chinese enterprises are accelerating the substitution of machines for human labor to improve efficiency and respond to the trend of population aging. According to data from the International Federation of Robotics, in the year 2022, for every 2 industrial robots installed globally, 1 was installed in China. Since the year 2013, China has been the world's largest robotics market, and in 2022, it installed nearly 290,000 industrial robots, setting a historical record. Labor-intensive manufacturing is being transformed by machines. The demand for assembly line factory workers is decreasing. Automated guided vehicles replacing transport workers and mechanical arms replacing assembly workers are becoming reality. For young migrant workers, moving to cities and entering factories used to be the main path to employment. Now that factory positions are partially replaced by robots, they can only turn to services such as food delivery and express logistics, sectors that machines still cannot fully take over. However, even within the service industry itself, new technologies are eroding jobs. Unmanned convenience stores, self-service ordering, and intelligent customer service, although seemingly improving convenience, actually reduce basic job positions. Not to mention that artificial intelligence has already shown substantial impact on white-collar jobs, for example, exerting pressure on junior copywriters and graphic designers. Young people often cluster in fields that are most vulnerable to technological disruption. Those with lower education levels often work in simple, repetitive manual labor positions, while those with higher education levels frequently engage in information processing work that artificial intelligence can assist with or even replace. When the pace of technological upgrading surpasses the pace of skill improvement, many young people will find that the value of their human capital is declining.
这些看似提高了便利，其实都减少了基础岗位。
This type of structural unemployment, being both concealed and gradual, is often overlooked, but in the long run, it is one of the hidden drivers of youth unemployment. China's vast territory and uneven economic development have also led to regional disparities in youth employment. The currently published youth unemployment rate mainly reflects conditions in urban areas, while the situation in rural regions is even more complex. Large cities, especially those along the eastern coast, concentrate the greatest number of job opportunities, but competition there is also extremely fierce. Young people in small and medium-sized cities and in rural areas often face a severe shortage of available jobs. Survey data show that although youth unemployment rates in major cities are high, at least these young people are still actively searching for work. In contrast, a large number of young people in county-level towns and rural areas may neither have jobs nor continue to look for one, becoming what statistics classify as discouraged workers. Some scholars estimate that the unemployment rate among rural young laborers may be no lower than that of urban youth. It is simply obscured by agricultural and household labor and therefore not counted. In reality, many young people from rural backgrounds, when unable to succeed in the cities, can only return to their hometowns and engage in scattered temporary labor or simply remain idle at home.
劳动力的失业率可能并不比城镇低。
Thus, a hidden employment gap between urban and rural areas has emerged. In addition, the uneven temperature of regional economies is also reflected in youth unemployment. In the Northeast and other old industrial bases, industrial decline has led to a large outflow of young people and low local employment rates. In some Western regions where development is insufficient, young people either leave their hometowns to work elsewhere or remain in their villages as idle labor. The concentration of job opportunities in first-tier cities has created another problem, talent siphoning. The more underdeveloped a region is, the more powerless its highly educated youth become as they continue to flow out. These areas are experiencing the hollowing out of their young population. Over time, the imbalance in regional development will intensify the complexity of youth unemployment nationwide and eventually become part of a broader structural economic crisis. In today's episode of China's Social Trends, we've examined a stark and rapidly shifting reality inside China, a youth unemployment rate rising above 18.9%, millions of highly educated graduates caught in an oversupply trap, industries collapsing or relocating overseas, and automation replacing workers at a pace never seen before. These numbers are more than statistics. They reveal deep structural strain, widening regional gaps, and a generation struggling to find direction in an increasingly uncertain economy. Yet, amid this turbulence, one anchor remains unchanged: the family. In a landscape where job security is shrinking and competition grows harsher by the day, traditional family values, support, stability, and belonging have become more vital than ever. This is the message China Social Trends hopes to leave with you. Regardless of how unpredictable society becomes, family remains the most reliable foundation for rebuilding hope. But this leads us to a challenging and controversial question. Is China's development model pushing an entire generation toward frustration, or are young people losing their ability to adapt to an increasingly competitive world? What do you think lies at the heart of this crisis? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found today's analysis valuable, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dive content. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.